Hey there, basketball fans and betting enthusiasts. I'm Coach James Young, and welcome to the first Betting Above the Rim podcast. This is a show where I bring you my unfiltered take on all things basketball, from the latest hoops action to the in-depth analysis. But folks, we're not stopping there. I'm also dishing out winning betting strategies that'll put a little extra cash in your pocket. You see, I bring the personality, the flair, and a passion that only a coach like myself can deliver. So fasten your seatbelts, let's get ready, because we're taking your love of basketball and your bets to a whole new level. So I'm so excited for this opportunity to speak to you guys. This will be something that we'll do twice a week, but this is the first one of these, and hopefully we'll be doing this throughout the NBA season, even when Betting Above the Rim comes on the air. This is Monday, November the 6th, just so you're aware. So we're going to do two things today. We're going to focus on things that I've liked and saw so far early on in the NBA season, but also now that college basketball begins tonight, we'll talk about a couple of things that I'm looking for in the college basketball season. But before we get into all of that, we lost a pioneer, a great mentor and coach of the game, and Coach Bob Knight last week, the legendary coach of West Point, obviously most known for his time at Indiana, winning 3 national championships, and finish up his career at Texas Tech. When he did leave the game of basketball, he was the all-time winningest coach in NCAA Division I basketball. And you could talk a lot about the general. And listen, the general had his demons. We all know. I'm not here to get into it, but as a coach and as a player, I could speak to you about the respect that I personally had for Coach Knight. Being a young kid growing up in central New Jersey, you know, my father always said there were 2 coaches that they wanted me to play for. One of them was John Thompson, and the other was Bob Knight. And it's because of the way that his teams, how hard they played, their commitment to defense. And I think this is the thing that people have to understand. The unselfish play of his team and his creativity and basically invention of the motion offense. See, Coach Knight, he reinvented the game in some sorts, and you could argue that he could be one of the greatest coaches, if not the most innovative coach, at least offensively, in the history of men's basketball. So you look at his accomplishments, the 3 national championships, the 1976 season, in which is the last team in the history of the NCAA to go undefeated all the way through the season and win the national championship, winning in 81 with Isaiah Thomas, winning his last championship in 87 versus Syracuse, but also the ability to not always get the best players and then get them to get and play in a team concept. And obviously going to Texas Tech at the end of his career and still winning was something that was a marvel. So before we get into all of what's going on, I just think as a coach and as someone that has always tried to instill discipline, a commitment to excellence in team play, it would be a disservice to me as a coach if I don't recognize one of the greatest basketball minds and Coach Bob Knight. Obviously, you know, rest in peace of Coach Knight's family, the Indiana community. I happen to be good friends with Jamal Meeks, who I coached with at Monmouth University, a former player for Coach Knight. Obviously, people like Scott Farrell on the SportsGrid network who are very close to Coach Knight. So my condolences to Coach Knight's family, his former players at Army, at Indiana, and obviously at Texas Tech, and all those that are affected by Coach Knight's passing. May Coach rest in peace. Now, when we get into this podcast, this is kind of my general thoughts on all things basketball. So we'll get into some betting strategies in a little bit, but as we go through, this is me unfiltered. This is my general thoughts. This is not scripted at all, folks. I'm telling you what I believe is going on in the game of basketball, and we'll look at it from individuals, players, to the whole nature league. But I want to kind of focus on, in the first couple of weeks in the NBA to start, 5 things that are really catching my attention. First off, the Memphis Grizzlies. Good God, is this team a mess? And let's get one thing straight here. A lot of people, after their flame out last year, they took Dylan Brooks. me included, and trash the guy, the dancing, the immaturity, all of those things. Well, Dillon Brooks is off to a really good start with the Houston Rockets. So now Dillon Brooks is gone. Who's the scapegoat now? What do you think it's because John Morant's suspension of 25 games? This is why the Memphis Grizzlies are where they are? I don't think so, folks. It goes a lot deeper than actually what's going on with John Morant. Now, listen, does John need to grow up? Yes. Does he need to make better decisions? Yes. Is he going to be better for this? We all hope so, because John Morant is a phenomenal talent, and we need phenomenal talents like this in the NBA. But why are they really in trouble? I'm going to give you a couple of reasons, and it's not what you think, because it's not Ja. Number one, the biggest problem that they have is the loss of Steven Adams. Steven Adams, the center, is the muscle, the defender, to protect the glass, and the big boy in the room. Here's the big boy in the room that you don't ever want to cross. And here's the big boy in the room as a coach. You look at him to lead your team. Meaning, check players when things are going wrong, but also when things are going wrong and there's drama against another team, that you need a guy that's going to step up to the plate. See, when you look at the Knicks in the early 90s, where I grew up as a Knicks fan, it wasn't Patrick Ewing. It was Charles Oakley. There's got to be a guy that won the teammates' fear, but the opponent's fear as well. You know, he doesn't have to have all the screws there, and he doesn't have to be the best player. But he's got to be a guy that is the nails and glue of your team, and someone you depend on to do all the dirty work. That was Steven Adams, and him being out for a year is a huge loss. You know why, folks? Because now Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't have someone to protect him. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr., the defensive player of the year, that's a bunch of malarkey. I could name a couple of defenders better than Jaren Jackson Jr., but that's okay. He was allowed to do what he had to do defensively because he had help in Steven Adams. He could be a weak side shot blocker. They don't have that in Memphis, so they lost their muscle and their rebounding. The other reason is, let's be honest, Tyus Jones is a damn good point guard. And to me, you can look at the metrics over the last couple of years. Were the Grizzlies at times better offensively with Tyus Jones? The answer is yes. But I want people to not be mistaken about what I'm saying. Is he a better player than John Morant? No, I'm not going there, and don't try to put those words in my mouth. What I am saying is, for what they needed at times, they needed that because he was the guy that can get guys shots. Now, Marcus Smart's a great addition, but it's not what they need. They need an adult in the room, but let's be honest, folks, they're not really playing really well right now. So losing Tyus Jones and Steven Adams is a problem. And that leads me to coaching. You know, this team was really good 2 years ago. They talked a lot of junk. They flamed out in the playoffs. At what point does the coaching get looked at as a possible problem with a team like Memphis? You know, listen, when you blow things up, folks, the first thing you do to blow up a team is you fire the coach. And Memphis, although they got their first win last night versus Portland, have not looked good at all. And like I said, coaching, but more importantly, the loss of Steven Adams and the loss of Tyus Jones. Now, when John gets back, they should be better. But you got to be careful, folks. If you dig yourself too deep of a hole in a really loaded Western Conference, you could be looking at a spot where now, instead of you're one of those top 6 seeds, now you're looking at the playing game or playing tournament, and now you're looking at one and go home if you're that 9 or 10 seed. So Memphis has some work to do, and it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward with the Memphis Grizzlies when Ja comes back. Because you know Steven Adams isn't walking in the door, and you know Tyus Jones isn't walking in the door. So what does Memphis do? How can they change the script? It's early, folks. It is early, but there are trends that I see that I don't like. When you talk about trends you don't like, I told y'all I'm a Knicks fan. And anybody in this network knows I bleed orange and blue. And what I am watching right now, out of two particular players, is bothering me. Now, one of them is the player. The other one is someone representing the player. Let's start with the player first. Folks, the Julius Randle odd year, even year, it is a thing. You don't believe me? Go look at his track record since coming to New York. 1920, god-awful. 2021, Tibbs wins Coach of the Year. Knicks overachieved. Julius Randle was fantastic. Then that playoff series came against Atlanta, and he was god-awful. And what did that lead to? The even year of 21-22. Bad year from Julius Randle. Statistically poor. Some questioned his effort. There was a whole incident, at MSG where he gave the thumbs down to the fans after a play. But all was forgotten in New York when 22-23 came. The emergence of Jalen Brunson, the improved play of RJ Barrett, but also the improved play of Julius Randle, who resulted back to his 2021 form, and for the second time as a Knick, made All-NBA team. So what happens in the playoffs? Another poor performance. Now, the Knicks obviously got out of the first round versus Cleveland. That could be as much to do with the coaching of J.B. Bickerstaff than it would be about anything the New York Knicks did. But then they ran into Spoelstra, and Spoelstra exposed Randle. So now we get into 23-24. New do, new you. And the new you ain't the you that the New York fans have been thinking about. Because Julius Randle's off to a terrible start. And honestly, folks, I was giving Randle a little bit of a pass early on because he wasn't making shots. But he was doing other things. I was looking at, for instance, a betting strategy. I looked at Randle's rebounds plus assists because he's a good rebounder. And when he shares the ball, he can get people shots. But I saw some stuff as a coach that really pissed me off with Randle. And that was his effort on the defensive end. So you got to understand something, folks, as a coach. Defense is your absolute. It is an effort that should never change. And what I've seen out of Randle, particularly early on this year, particularly at Milwaukee game last Friday night, there's a guy I know. Friends and I call him the ultimate rah-rah guy, like a cheerleader. You know what that means? When things are going great, he's the first one clapping, and he's the first one puffing his chest, and everything looks great, and the stats are good. But when his stats are going down, when he's not playing himself, he becomes about himself and not the team. And that's my concern with Julius Randle. Whether you are scoring or not, Julius, it does not matter to the Knicks fans. What matters is your effort, your commitment to the team, and your damn defense. And that has been lacking. And you saw some examples of how his lackadaisical defense may have cost the Knicks the game Friday night. Now, people are going to sit there and say, well, the one play, it was a play for him, not Brunson. He scored the play before. Damn it! Jalen Brunson had 45 points. He was the reason why you guys were even in that game with Milwaukee with no RJ Barrett. So you don't do one thing you don't do as a leader of a team, Julius. You don't show up your teammates. You can talk about all the great players of the past. For me, I go back to Patrick Ewing. It didn't matter if Patrick didn't score enough. Oh, he always brought it defensively. He always gave you minutes. He always played hurt. And don't sell me on this. It's another generation. No. New Yorkers demand that you play your hardest. If you play your hardest, they will always back you. So whether you're scoring, Julius, nobody cares, honestly. If you're 4 for 18, we get it. It happens. But if you defend and you get assists and you rebound like hell and you take quality shots and you're engaged with your team, that's what people are going to buy into. And that's what coaches want. Coaches want guys that would lead, especially when things don't go well their way. Now, when you're looking at the Knicks, one guy that's actually playing somewhat well is Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson has proven himself to be an outstanding offensive rebounder, shot blocker, and at times a lob threat. But Mitchell Robinson, I do believe, did not score on Friday night. And his trainer, I don't even know his name, it doesn't matter, went on social media to knock the Knicks for not giving him dunk attempts and attempts to score the ball. First things first, Mitchell Robinson, you got your bag. Now, could there be more lobs to you? Yeah, you're probably right. The guy that usually throws the lobs to you out of anybody happens to be RJ Barrett, who's hurt. We'll see if he plays tonight in their game versus the Clippers at MSG. But the important thing about this, Mitch, is since you've gotten to the league, what have you done to improve your offensive repertoire? Now, you sit there and you can look at his stats and you can see that Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, has done a great job of scoring at a high clip. I get it. He gets the ball, he scores. I get it. Mitchell Robinson is giving you 5.2 points per game, and he's shooting basically at an extremely high clip this year, shooting the ball at 41.4%, which is poor for him. Okay? Realize, folks, that Mitchell Robinson has shot at least 65% from the floor every season. But do you know why, Mitch, you don't get the ball? You're shooting 52.8% for your career. Now, you've had, 3 seasons where you shot under 50%. So if I am a coach and I'm defending you, if you get the ball on the low post, if you have a quality post game, which you may, I don't know, I'm going to put you to the foul line and I'm going to make you earn it. I mean, we had Hack-a-Shaq back in the day. I mean, you could be like Hack-a-Stevie Wonder. I mean, we don't know if you make 2 out of 2. You know, like some arenas, if you make 2, if the opposing team misses 2 free throws, they get like free Chick-fil-A or free nuggets. You get 2 in a row off the foul line. They may have to give Knicks fans something for that. So my point to your trainer is this. No one wants to hear you speak about what you think your client should be getting offensively. What we need to see is, does Mitchell Robinson have a jump hook? Does Mitchell Robinson have a drop step? Does Mitchell Robinson have an up and under or a sigma? Does Mitchell Robinson have a reverse pivot face up, knock down a shot? Does Mitchell Robinson have a spin back? Does Mitchell Robinson have different ways that he gets into a move? 1 dribble, step out, 2 dribble, fake the drop step. Does Mitchell Robinson have all of that in his repertoire offensively in the low post? Because if he did, he would be showing it in practice, and Tom Thibodeau would reward him with a couple of passes into the post. This ain't no Bill Cartwright, Chicago Bulls give you the ball first possession of the game, every possession to see if you can score. Bill Cartwright can actually score in the NBA, folks. Go look at his track record. So, the trainer of Mitchell Robinson, here's my advice to you. Honestly, I know you're putting in work. I've trained kids, but I've gotten myself in trouble talking on the internet or talking to people about what my kids can do. Very simple. He's got to go show it in practice every day. If he shows it in practice every day and Tibbs isn't giving him the looks, that's a conversation that Mitch has with Tibbs. It has nothing to do with you. You're going to still get your check, bro. He's still paying you. So at the end of the day, let Mitch handle his business. He's doing great rebounding the ball. Yes, maybe we can get him a couple of more lob attempts, but you need to stay out of this and let the coach and the player handle this situation. Speaking of handling situations, what the hell is going on in Chicago? Like, can someone sit there and tell me, what are they trying to do? Now, let's not mistake this. A couple of years ago, before Lonzo got hurt, the Bulls were good. They were really good. But folks, it was tricky. If you look, they didn't win any games versus teams in the top 3 of the East or Western Conference. So it's fool's gold, meaning they beat the teams they were supposed to beat. When they played good teams, they got run. They got run bad. So what did Chicago do last year? They underachieved. So now you're looking at a situation going into this year where the Chicago Bulls are running it back. They re-signed Vucevic. They have Patrick Williams. Lonzo, I really hope Lonzo gets himself healthy because I think Lonzo is a hell of a talent, and he got so much better as a pro, not just becoming what I think is one of the elite perimeter defenders, but a very capable three-point shooter. But you have the Chicago Bulls, folks. I want you to understand this. They're 2-5. Okay? They're 2-5. They had Zach LaVine score 49 points, or 51, I should say, and they lost by 16. They didn't lose by 1. They didn't lose by 2 or 3. They got run by 16 points. They have 2 wins on this year. One of their wins was against Indiana. Indiana did not play well that game. And then they had a win where they had a furious comeback versus Toronto, which I don't know how the hell they won that game from them. But think about they've given up 124 points to Oklahoma City, 118 to Detroit, 114 to Dallas, close loss 109-107 to Brooklyn, and give up 123 points to Denver. Now, they are in action tonight, Monday, November 6th, versus Utah Jazz at home, a team that is really not that good. So this should be an opportunity that they need to go ahead and get a win. Because after that, it's Phoenix, it's Detroit, both at home. Detroit has beaten them already this year by 16, at Milwaukee. They don't win tonight, they could be looking at 2-10 by the time we get to the next episode of the Betting Above the Rim podcast, or 2-9, I should say, because the next podcast will be next Monday, the 13th. And what happens then if they're 2-9 staring at Milwaukee in the face on the road? At what point and you're the Chicago Bulls, now let's be honest, besides the 1 year that Tibbs won Coach of the Year and Derrick Rose was the MVP before he blew his knee out, they have not been good at all, barely I would say, since Jordan retired. At what point does the organization look around and say, listen, do we got talent? Yeah. Zach LaVine could score? Absolutely. Can DeMar DeRozan score? Absolutely. Is Nikola Vucevic a double-double machine? Absolutely. Is Torrey Craig a quality NBA player? Yes. Is Alex Caruso one of the better defenders? Yes. Is Patrick Williams a decent player? Yes. Ayo Dosunmu, decent player? Yes. But it ain't working. So at that point, do you look at the players or do you look at Billy Donovan? That's why some sports books have Billy Donovan as a leading candidate to get fired at the end of this year. The first coach to be fired, I should say. It's the reason why. They're not going anywhere. And I would suspect by the trading deadline, if I'm Chicago and it's not going well, and you don't know when and if you're going to get Lonzo back. I know he says he's going to come back, and like I said before, I hope he does. Guys need to get moved. Because to me in the NBA, folks, you're either winning or you're rebuilding. You can't be stuck in the middle. And right now, Chicago was stuck in the middle, and they're heading in the wrong direction. But now, I've been sitting here, getting after people a little bit. But there are things that I really do love so far about this NBA season. And to me, folks, it's been the young teams. Every year there's always a team that kind of comes up and kind of does things that you didn't expect that could happen. I'm not talking about Boston. I'm not talking about Philadelphia. I mean, yeah, we could talk about Atlanta being 4-2 when there's a fourth straight going in tonight. Obviously, last game they lost, I think, was the game they lost to the Knicks. And they've been playing relatively well. And, DeJounte Murray's really been better the second year with Trae Young and Johnson in the starting lineup, along with DeAndre Hunter, is one of my favorite players in the league, with Capella, with Okongwu, with Bogdanovich. Yes, they've been good. But I want to start focusing on some of these younger teams that have been bad for a while that are playing well. Let's start with Orlando, folks. 4-2. First in the Southeast Division. Are they going to finish there? No. But they have played relatively good basketball. They just blew out the Lakers Saturday night by 20. They've won on the road at Utah. They were competitive in the first half against the Lakers in LA, was winning and they lost. And they have a 30-point win opening night against a Houston team that is also playing a little bit better. But it's the play of the sum of their parts. When you look at a team that's got 6 guys in double figures, that as a coach, I love that. Because it becomes hard to, who do you stop? Who's the guy? It's a Franz Wagner at 19.8. It's a Paulo Banchero at 17.5. It's a Cole Anthony, who has adopted his role as a 6th man and becoming one of the better 6-man players in the league, scoring 15.3. It's a Markelle Fultz, who is finally healthy and has found a home. It's a Mo Wagner, Franz's older brother. Wendell Carter Jr., 9.4, 8.6. They'll miss him tonight. He's not playing tonight. So you want to see success. And I think you're getting that because also some of these guys, like Fultz, was had injury concerns. Like Jalen Suggs was had injury concerns. And what this has done is it's allowed some of the younger guys, like Anthony Black, to come along slowly. But Anthony's still giving you 6.3 points per game in about 14 minutes. So shout out to the Orlando Magic, a team that I think is playing better than what we thought. And I thought this was a team that could get over their team total. If they're hanging that thing pretty low and you can get on there, you may want to take a look. But we'll see. When we come back in a week on the 13th, they're going to play Dallas tonight as a 4.5-point home favorite. They got to play Atlanta. They got to play Milwaukee. They could be, and all 3 of them at home. They could be 7-2. They also could be 4-5. But you like where you're going and you're seeing so far with a team like the Orlando Magic. Let's keep with a couple other teams in the East. I have been, folks, and how about I'll do this? I'll do the 2 teams that are playing tonight on November 6th. San Antonio and Indiana. Both of those teams, I'll be honest with you, folks, I thought the Spurs were going to be awful. I thought they were going to be so damn bad. But I got to recognize real, and that's Pop. And I should never, ever, ever disrespect and think not highly enough of a team like Pop has. I have a friend of mine, George Sorless. Dear friend is my mentor, he's still coaching, but coached and won 14 state championships at Rumson Fairhaven High School in New Jersey. And George said, one day we talked, and he said, what's the difference between me and you? I said, what? He goes, my players. Folks, I want you to understand something. Talent wins games. Coaching loses games. So if you have talent on your roster, you give yourself a chance to win. And it's been obvious that Victor Wembanyama, who has struggled at times early on, folks, he's starting to get it. He's starting to get it. Look at that 38-point outburst, and look at Wembanyama late in games. And here's my little betting nugget. I always want to try to give you some kind of betting nugget every time I come on. Something I look for because as a coach, I see things differently. Do you notice that Victor Wembanyama is typically the first big sub out of the game? Have you noticed this? Comes out 4 or 5 minutes into the game. I don't like betting Wembanyama pregame. I like betting him live for his points. Think about this. A couple of games ago, Victor Wembanyama came out, his points prop was at 16.5, his game versus Phoenix, the first game. Victor Wembanyama came out with about 4 or 5 minutes into the game, 0 points. Do you know that his 16.5 pregame number dropped to 13.5, and I think I saw 12.5? That's way too low. So until the books adjust, be willing to bet Victor Wembanyama live. If he gets off to a slow start, then jump in live when they dropped those points. They dropped that thing to 12 and a half or so. Folks, he's got one game that he's gotten 11, right? The other games that Victor Wembanyama has played so far in the NBA, 15, 21, 18, 38, and 20. So if they hang these numbers low in game and they drop that thing to 12, 13 and a half, you got to go get it. So watch Wembanyama, and that's the other point really quickly, is understanding substitution patterns. Watch the game. Let them come out. When they get ready to check into the table, check the live, points prop. That thing drops too low, hammer it. You may be able to hammer it in the first half and hammer it in the second half, and maybe you win twice. But Detroit has been really, really good. I'm sorry, along with San Antonio. And San Antonio I've been impressed with. But I'm sorry, before I get to Detroit, how about the Indiana Pacers? I went on record with SportsGrid before the season and said, I love this team. And I thought that this team could make the playoffs. I want people to understand something. If Tyrese Halliburton played in New York, Tyrese Halliburton played in LA, Tyrese Halliburton played in Miami, or Philadelphia, or Chicago, you would be calling Tyrese Halliburton a top 15 player in the NBA. One of the easiest bets to bet this year. Tyrese Halliburton lead the league in assists. I don't know. 4 games in, 24.2, 12.4, 4 rebounds. But how about a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio for your point guard? That's a number as a coach I can get into. Shooting 49.4% from the floor, almost 40% from 3, 92.3% from the foul line. Folks, Halliburton is the real deal. And I think he's one of the 3 best point guards or 4 best point guards right now in the NBA. And that's amazing because that trade with Sacramento, you could argue they both won. Between Sabonis and Halliburton. They both won. They both got what they needed and wanted. And it was perfect because Sacramento got a big, they had an influx of point guards with Davion Mitchell, with De'Aaron Fox, with Halliburton. They got rid of Halliburton. And with Miles Turner and Sabonis, one of the bigs had to go. So it benefited both teams. But damn it, that Halliburton, he can go. And I can watch him any day of the week, and he can play twice on Sunday. Now, Detroit is an interesting case, folks, because Detroit doesn't have the record you would think or you would want for me to say, I've been excited by this team. But I can't say it enough. I have been. And they've lost 4 games in a row. And I get it. You're like, they just lost by 14 to Phoenix. But they got some kids here, and they got some talent. And I want people to understand this. Understand this. They're missing Alec Burks. Who is Alec Burks? Alec Burks is a damn good pro that not enough people talk about. Was really good with the Knicks. He's had a good NBA career. Was getting 15.3, 3.3, and really getting it in about 20 to 25 minutes a night. And they miss Alec Burks. There's on a couple of games that they have missed Jalen Duren, who has been absolutely fantastic, who has been the goods and has been a double-double machine. It's someone that you need to consider. If the double-double market is within even money, you got to consider Jalen Duren, who has exploded at 14.3 points per game, 11.5 rebounds. He has been so good. Think about this. They moved Isaiah Stewart to the 4. He has been so good that Marvin Bagley III, a top 5 draft pick, is coming off the bench and giving 18 minutes a night with the one start that Duren missed. Jalen Duren's been so good that James Wiseman has played 1 game this season. 6 minutes. You know what that game was? The game Jalen Duren didn't play. So think about how good Jalen Duren has been. But it's bigger than that. It's been the play of Cade Cunningham. See, when Cade went to the select team, he balled out. And I've been waiting for Cade. That's why I thought Cade could be someone that could win Most Improved Player. 23.1 points, 7.3 assists. Now, he's got 5.6 turnovers a game. He's got to get that down. But this is a young guard that's starting to get it. And he did something I thought that was pretty interesting. And I still have to figure out why, but it's been working out. They're bringing Jaden Ivey off the bench, which I was like, I don't get it. But the one thing I've learned is I trust Monty Williams and young guards. And so far, even though they're 2-5, I like this Detroit team. And if they can get their you-know-what together, they're going to be good. And don't sleep on myself and K-Dub's favorite guy, Asor Thompson. Folks, double-double alert. 11.4, 9.3 rebounds. And they're hanging his double-double prices sometimes at plus 250, plus 300. So look around and shop around. If it's a poor rebounding team or shoots the ball poorly, and Asor Thompson's got that plus 250 on the double-double market, go hit that thing. You're going to be able to make yourself a little bit of money. Lastly, really quick, I know that people are looking at the East and saying it's the Bucks and the Celtics, and I get it. Are they the two best teams? Yes. I got concerns. I know Boston's undefeated. I know they're rolling everybody. Shoot, I took Boston to win their group in the in-season tournament, got it on a profit boost, and got them there even money. So, but they got things you got to be worried about. Porzingis, can he stay healthy? Can Tatum do it in the playoffs? What happens in the playoffs when people make Jaylen Brown go left? Watch his game. Can't go left. He's got to get better at it. I trust he will. And we know about Father Time being out undefeated. So Al Horford, clock's ticking. But they've been great. But I just want to say, before we crown them, I'm not ready to crown them yet. Not even in the East. And that goes for the same with Milwaukee. I get it. Dame Time is a top 15 player in the NBA. Phenomenal talent. But he hasn't stayed healthy. Brook Lopez is getting older. And I also don't think, for someone that's considered one of the top defensive players in the NBA, I don't think he rebounds with enough ferocity, in my opinion. But now with the trade and bringing Damian Lillard in, Chris Middleton is now a standstill shooter. This is the guy who needs the ball in his hands. So they got things they got to work out. And I know people, I don't like Grayson Allen. But I'll tell you right now, I'll take that dude on my team any day of the week. That is the type of guy you hate to deal with as a coach of the other team or another player or another team. But you're like, psh, I'll take him. Because he'll fight, he'll scratch, he'll claw, he'll kick. Sometimes in the nuts. So, but we get the point. They're missing that. And they're going to miss Drew Holiday. They're going to miss his defense. I know he's inconsistent offensively, but they're going to miss his defense, particularly in the playoffs and half-court basketball. Did you see what Jalen Brunson did to Damian Lillard on Friday night? Big-time point guard's going to be able to score in Damian Lillard. And here's the last thing with Milwaukee, quickly. They have a rookie head coach. Listen, being a head coach for the first time, folks, it's like being a father for the first time. You can read all the books, you can go to all the clinics, you can get all the manuals, you can do everything. But when it stares you in the face, it's trial by fire. And sometimes trial by error. So, although they're off to a good start, Adrian Griffin is a rookie head coach. And I do think losing Terry Stotts, experienced coach right next to him, may hurt him in the long run in big spots. Ask Joe Mazzulla how it was not having experience next to him. He addressed that with Charles Lee and Sam Cassell on his bench. Now to the college game, which kicks off tonight. A couple of things I want to touch base really quickly. Number one, everybody likes a Cinderella story. They're back. Florida Atlantic, Dusty May. What a great job this team has done. They're top 10 preseason. Can they duplicate success? Now, they're going to go from the hunter to the hunted, obviously in league. People will circle them on their schedule. But I really believe, folks, I believe in this team. I believe in their cohesion. And I believe in stability and continuity because that's what helps win you games in March, is the ability to know what your teammate's going to do before your teammate does it. And that's what Florida Atlantic has. They have experience, and they have a hell of a coach in Dusty May. And do I think they can make another run to the Final Four? I really do. Because all you got to do is be better for 40 minutes. And that is what they have done time and time again last year. And I think they're going to compete. On to Cal. John Calipari changed the recruiting game with the one and done. You remember when Mike Krzyzewski didn't want to touch the one and done guys? And Cal ran to it? You see Coach K change his tune real quick and go get himself some one and dones. Kentucky's been a disappointment as of late. And there's starting to be whispers. Could this be it for Cal soon? Folks, I think Cal, if I'm not mistaken, it's a $33 million buyout. Do you know who could pay for that? Kentucky. Because they got unlimited money. So is the pressure on Cal this year? Listen, you lose Toppin, you lose to Shibwe. I mean, you lose some core guys. But don't sleep on Cal, folks. Antonio Reeves is back. And shout out, Jersey in the building. Shout out to the two Jersey guys, Bradshaw and Wagner. Sound like a damn law firm. Well, they're bringing it down to Lexington. But Cal's got to perform. And this is just not make the tournament. I think Cal has got to win a couple of games if they stay healthy and get at least, I would say, to the Sweet 16, the second weekend, for people to calm down the noise with Cal. Because if they get bounced in the first round, there are going to be calls for his head. And that would be a shame because Calipari has changed the game in regard to recruiting with the one and dones. It just so happens that a lot of schools have caught up to Cal. Can he get it done this year at Kentucky? Next topic. Slick Rick is back in the Big East. And I'm talking about Rick Pitino, who won at Providence, who won at Louisville, and is now taken over for Mike Anderson at St. John's. And this guy retooled the roster. How he did it? But he did it. And he's got himself a dynamite roster there at St. John's for this upcoming season. And it's interesting because St. John's and the Big East doesn't have the allure, I would say, that when I was a kid. See, I grew up in the 80s. So I think about the Walter Berry, Mark Jackson, Chris Mullin, Bill Wennington, Louis Carnesecca, Malik Sealy. I can go on and on and on and on and on about how St. John's at one time was one of the most prestigious basketball institutions in this country. Yeah, folks, you young kids, go do your history and look at St. John's. But they've fallen on hard times for a long time. But this guy did such a great job retooling the roster. And boy, he got himself some players. He got himself some big-time transfers that are going to help him. From a Jordan Dingle to a Sean Conway, to a Chris Ledlam. He's gotten guys. He's got Soriano back, one of the best big men in the Big East. He's got Simeon Wilcher, the kid out of, I do believe, Roselle Catholic, to change and come to St. John's. I want people to understand this. Another guy that's had his things that have happened in the past. Rick Pitino's a hell of a coach. One of the best there is. Rick Pitino's a hell of a recruiter. I'm going to say this, folks. If Rick Pitino can't turn around St. John's, nobody can. It's hard to sell Jamaica Queens to a recruit. It's hard to sell the Carnesecca Arena as your on-campus arena. They play so many games. That's why Pitino's smart playing as many games as he can at MSG. Because MSG has allure to kids. Does it have it what it used to be? No. But it's still the world's most famous arena. I really want Pitino to make this work at St. John's as a local guy. But if he doesn't win there, I don't see how that anyone can win at St. John's. Last topic, college basketball, year of the big men. I coach bigs, so I love it. Armando Baycock, Hunter Dickinson, Kyle Filipowski, Zach Edey. So I can go to Big Eric Dixon at Villanova. I mean, there's bigs everywhere in the country. And it's going to be amazing to watch them develop. But as much as it's the year of the big man, guards decide who wins championships. That's why in the past, I haven't been a fan of Purdue. Not saying I'm not a fan of Zach Edey. Love him. Oh, traditional post player, get the ball in the hole, turn around, jump, hook, game over. Love it. Easiest play in basketball. Teams blow it up in the postseason. That post up in the middle lane, instead of being 5 feet in the basket, now you're 7, 8 feet. It's a little bit harder to make. So you're depending on guards. So out of those teams, out of the Carolinas, out of the Purdues, out of the Dukes, out of the Kansases, even Villanova with the 4 transfers coming in for Cal Neptune, as good as those bigs are, it will be decided by guard play. Guards that can knock down shots, guards can do what you got to do to help the team win is going to be the way that teams are going to succeed this upcoming season. Folks, it was a pleasure for me to do this first Betting Above the Rim podcast. First off, this is Coach Young. You can follow me at Coach Young NJ on all your social media platforms. But remember, just to remind you, we got this great app. So please download our free SportsGrid mobile app available on iOS and Android. If you ever miss any of my takes on air or on this podcast, like I said, you can follow me on social media, or even better, why don't you get the app? Stay up to speed. But the app can do more than just what I say on the network. It's everyone else. It's the Scotty Farrells. It's the Kevin Walshes. It's the Ben Stevens. It's the Joe Ranieri's. It's the Joe Lisi's. We have such a great group of guys, and I'm not even getting into the ladies such as Joe Madden and Taylor Mathis. We have such a great roster that this SportsGrid app to me is something that you need. And it's important now that it's basketball season, and I'll have all you need for there. The matchup analysis, we got it. The odds, the stats, the picks, the props, anything you need to make that dough, you can get it on the SportsGrid app. And it's got the best live game tracking out there, showing you who's on the court, live odds, and box scores. So make sure you go to Android or iOS and make sure you get the free SportsGrid app. Once again, this has been Coach Young. This is November 6th. Next Betting Above the Rim podcast. We're going to shoot it next Monday, the 13th. It will be released on Tuesday, the 14th. It's been Coach Young. It's been my pleasure to be on with you today. And you know what I always like to do? It's time to make that dough. I'll see you next week. Betting Above the Rim podcast. All right, bro. What'd you think for the first one? I know I talked too much. How was it?